Our book of Esther tonight, chapter 9, book of Esther, chapter 9, is where we'll take our textual reading. We may not get to it immediately. We may read it here in a moment, but that gives you time to turn to Esther, chapter 9. Hopefully, this is a passage of Scripture, but also a book of God's Word that hopefully many of you are familiar with, because what we're going to do tonight is we're going to just kind of go over it together so that we can kind of have a rehearsal or a remembrance of what the book of Esther is all about. Because after all, as we've been studying the Feast of Israel, now we come yet again to another feast, the Feast of Purim, or the Feast of Purim. And this particular feast, as our last feast, is not an Old Testament law feast, right? It's not mandated in the Pentateuch. It's not mandated from Moses or God through Moses. It's none of that. This is yet another one of God's feasts, or one of the people of Israel's feasts, that God is going to be mentioned and celebrated as providentially providing for his people and watching over his people. As far as our time frame, 14th and 15th of Adar, or March, was what we would have it corresponding to. This is not a morose feast. This is not a, we need to afflict ourselves feast. Although the 13th, from what I understand, is sometimes used as a day of fasting, right? A day of fasting and remembrance and pausing and reflecting and thinking about this feast, while the 14th and 15th are the days of celebration and joy and sending of gifts and sending of presents and sending of food and eating and just being merry and joyful. You say, well, what are they being merry and joyful about? What are they sending gifts about? Why are they having these feasts? Why would the 13th be a day where they pause and reflect and remember? Well, that goes back to the book of Esther. So while we're thinking about the book of Esther, as I said, you guys are going to help me out tonight. We're going to kind of go through some of this, and then we'll get to our text here momentarily. There are several principal characters, places that need to be remembered with the book of Esther. These people or characters are here on our board tonight. So you have King Ahasuerus, Queen Vashti, Shushan, Mordecai, Esther, and Haman. Hopefully, as I'm reading them, you're going, I remember them, right? I remember them from Sunday school. I remember them from Bible school. I remember them from Brother So-and-so preaching a series of messages about this wonderful little book. So King Ahasuerus, right? King Ahasuerus, first of all, let's start looking at him and discussing him. Anybody remember anything much about King Ahasuerus from previous study, previous preaching that you have heard? King Ahasuerus, book of Esther. Let me ask you this. Go ahead. There you go, Miss Joe. Appreciate that. Miss Joe is right on the money. In history, you're not going to see him referred to as Ahasuerus. In history, you'll see him known more notably as King Xerxes. Now, King Xerxes of the mighty Medo-Persian Empire. King Darius had been his father. Now he is the big dog on the stage, and he is the king of the mighty Medo-Persian Empire. Babylon is no more. Now, this story begins in Esther, if you'll remember, by King Ahasuerus deciding he's going to have a 180-day feast, right? 180-day feast, and all my little nobles from all my provinces, from all my giant mighty empire are going to come in and observe my wealth and my power and my might. And oh, by the way, we're going to plan some military campaigns while we're at it, right? So now he's having this big, huge celebration, 180 days in the third year of his reign. He's on the throne now. All these people are coming in and talking and giving their reports and going back to their provinces. But in the midst of this 180 days, this is also a time of revelry and drinking, all right? A time of revelry and drinking. And so as they're drinking and as these men are enjoying themselves, they're getting a little too carried away, as alcohol will sometimes cause you to do. So here you have King Ahasuerus of the mighty Medes and Persians, but also let us remember not just King Ahasuerus, but let us also remember Queen Vashti. Oh man, her name means beauty or beautiful. Beauty or beautiful. Anybody remember anything about Queen Vashti? Go ahead, Jesse.
She was his wife, correct?
Yes. She is King Ahasuerus' wife. And Jesse, how does she come into this episode of Esther?
If I remember correctly.
Okay.
She did something displeasing to him.
Okay.
Which caused a dangerous precedent.
Okay. she did do something that displeased him, and he and his councilmen, his wise men, were afraid it would set a dangerous precedent throughout the entire kingdom, because everybody in the kingdom, all the ladies of the kingdom, all the wives of the kingdom will hear about what Queen Vashti did. Now, that sounds like it's pretty bad, right? Like, my goodness, what did she do that was so bad that they were afraid, oh, all the women are going to see her bad precedent and cause an uproar. Anybody remember what she did that was so... Go ahead, Ms. Joe.
Well, she did want to come into a drunken feast.
Okay.
And he wanted to show her off. And
Okay.
she was not having it.
She was a woman of character, okay? At least somewhat a woman of character. Remember, her name means beauty or beautiful. Remember, 180 days, they're drinking, they're having a big time, they're having a big celebration. Alcohol has caused him to not think as he ought to. And he decides, I think it'll be a good idea to have my wife come in here and parade amongst these drunken men and parade her beauty for all to see. Queen Vashti is like, are you crazy? No way, no how, no day I'm going to come in there. She refuses. Now he's looking bad in front of all these people who are supposed to be his subordinates. And he's got to figure out something, because now I look bad. I sat here and commanded something, and my own queen won't do it. My own wife won't do it. So all his councilmen are going, oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And oh, by the way, I put this on the board as well. Shushan is his palace. This is where this is going on, this 180-day feast, in which Queen Vashti says, no way. So now he's going, what do I do? What do I do? The wise men, who are his counselors, they have a big plan for him. They say, you know what? I know how we'll nip this in the bud. I know how we'll make it to where none of the other ladies, none of the other wives in the kingdom will get all too high and mighty. We'll just go ahead and you get rid of Queen Vashti. You get rid of her, you depose her, and then we'll have all the beautiful women, all the beautiful virgins, all the beautiful maidens from around your empire will be brought to Shushan. And then king, then you can select of all these beautiful women from all over the empire, the most wonderful, beautiful maiden virgin for your new queen. So now we have the setting is set. And I hope you all remember this setting is now set. And remember, the Jews have been carried away under which captivity? Babylonian captivity, but now the Medo-Persians have come on the scene and boop, kicked out the Babylons. So now we have the Medo-Persian Empire is enrolled, but you still have the remnants of Jews still under their authority and still living in that realm. One of these Jews is a man named Mordecai. Mordecai is going to play a central role in this story of Esther. Any of our young people from your Bible school and your Sunday school, go ahead, Anna, tell me a little bit about Mordecai.
Wasn't he Esther's uncle?
Okay. Okay. All right. Mordecai, he is her kinfolk. If you look in chapter 2, he is her kinfolk. If I'm not mistaken, it's more likened to her cousin, because in chapter 2, verse 7, it's Esther, his uncle's daughter. So his uncle's daughter, Mordecai's uncle's daughter, which would mean that is cuz. So now you've got Mordecai. He's kin to this little lady down here, and we're going to find out about her in a moment. Mordecai is an important person there in Medo-Persia. He does sit at the gate, which means it is a position of responsibility, a position of note. People note him and recognize him. He's not just some Jew who's there in Medo-Persian. As Anna said, he has a cuz, but now this cuz has kind of become his, I guess you call her his foster daughter. He treats her like a daughter, and she looks to him as dad, because her parents are no more. All right, her parents are no more. Now you got Esther coming on the scene. Esther gets, I don't know how to politically correctly call that roundup of women. She gets kind of brought in with this roundup of women to Shushan. And remember this, you've got women from how many provinces? All of them. And from what part of the empire? All of it. And they've all been brought to Shushan. Now, you got to think about that. You're talking about potentially hundreds. I've not heard an exact figure. Maybe, could we even say possibly 1,000 women being brought to Shushan to be paraded before the king so that he can choose the next queen. So we've got one, that we know of, one Jewish girl out of all these women, right? And now they're getting brought before the king and brought before the king. And guess what? Of all those women, who is found as the most beautiful and the most delicate and the one who finds the most favor in the eyes of mighty Xerxes? Well, we know that. It's Esther. Now, she is also known as Hadassah. You'll see that in Scripture, Hadassah. Hadassah is myrtle or peace. All right, myrtle or peace. Esther is more likened to like a star. But Hadassah or Esther. Esther is now the queen. Mordecai, does anybody remember? Mordecai, did he tell her, hey, when you get up there to be queen, tell everybody you're a Jew?
No.
He said, Ixnay on the Jews day, right? Don't tell nobody, right? Don't tell nobody. Just keep that art a secret. You just go be the queenie, right? So she goes to be the queen. Oh, by the way, after she gets to become the queen, Mordecai, in his position by the gate, guess what? He finds out about a plot to assassinate Xerxes by his chamberlains, Bigthan and Teresh. And when he finds out about that plot, he tells Queen Esther. Esther tells Xerxes. Those two men are. And now all of a sudden, we have the stage set. Mordecai is a position. He has saved the king's life. It's written in the Chronicles of the Medes and Persians. Esther's the queen. Things are going great. Man, this is awesome, right? God is working through his people. Man, this is wonderful. And throughout this story, what you're going to see again and again are several themes, and I just have them written on the board. They're just for you to remember and to call your attention. Providence of God, how he works things out, right? All right, as he's working down. Remember, girls from across the empire, and of all the girls, God's working things out. Oh, you mean that of all the people who could have found out about that assassination plot, it was the one who had the queen's ear? Oh, God working things out. And you're going to keep seeing that throughout this episode and throughout this story. Faith in God or trust that he's going to be there and work things out. Sacrifice and service and so forth. We'll get to those as we continue on. But there's one more character on the board, and we haven't hit him yet, have we? Ready? I started to say, cue the bad guy music. Dun, dun, right? Oh, man. Now we got to bring up Haman. Haman the Agagite. Haman the Agagite. Some believe that Agagite is a reference to King Agag, who Saul did not kill and Samuel had to slay. Others believe that it's possibly Agag, a province or a town within the Medo-Persian Empire. Either way, you've got a bad dude on the stage now. He basically gets elevated to what you might call prime minister, or pretty high up in the rankings for King Ahasuerus and Xerxes. And as such, because he is kind of considered like a prime minister or a position of authority, when he comes on the scene, Jesse, do you remember what the people are supposed to do of the empire and all that when they see Haman? Bow and give him reverence. Oh, there's Haman. Oh, there's Haman. And believe it or not, everybody does it, right? Everybody's doing it. Almost. Anybody remember who it was that said, not me? Mordecai said, not me. Now, some have said, why would not he bow to Haman? Some have said he realized the arrogance dripping off of Haman. Maybe. Some have said because as a Jew, he was not want to be considered bowing before anything other than Jehovah God. Either way, he's not bowing. He's not giving reverence. He's not giving honor to Haman when Haman's on the scene. Haman, does he take it well? Oh, well, no big deal. He becomes enraged. And he becomes glowing with anger. And he begins to think, how can I get back at this Mordecai? How can I get right back at these people? How can I do something to him and just really show him who's the boss and who's got the authority? Oh, I know. Didn't somebody say he was a Jew? Didn't somebody say he was a Jew? And remember, Haman's basically the prime minister or number 2. He goes before King Xerxes, and he says, oh, king, there's a people in your empire. Notice he didn't call them Jews. He said, there's a people. There's a people in your empire. And this people, man, they don't listen to you. And they don't respect you. And they don't want to obey you. And they don't worship like we worship. Man, king, you'd be better off if you just get rid of them altogether. And he said, I tell you what, king, I'll sweeten the pot. I give 10,000 talents of silver. You say, Brother Haynes, how much is that in our modern currency? That'd be millions of dollars of his own money. I'm going to give 10,000 talents of silver to make sure it gets done if you'll just give the order. King Xerxes said, well, sure thing, man. Here's my ring. Sign it. So he gets him his signet ring. He signs it. That decree goes throughout all the land. Oh, by the way, if he's going to get rid of the Jews, is he going to put them on a boat and send them somewhere? Or what's he going to do to them? Thank you, Luke. He is going to eradicate, exterminate, kill them all. Kill them all. Oh, by the way, if he's going to kill them all, when are they supposed to kill them all? Well, that's when we get the Feast of Purim. The pur, or the pur, was the lot, right? And when you see a lot in the Bible about casting of lots, this was the casting of objects in order to discern or determine of the will of God, or to discern or determine a decision. Obviously, Haman is not a godly man, so he doesn't care about God's will, but he sure wants to know when would be the perfect day to kill all these Jews. So he casts the lots, and the lots fall on 13th day of Adar. Remember that day when we said that's oftentimes, from what I understand, a day of fasting and thinking and reflecting? That was the day the Jews were supposed to be annihilated. And the king signs it. Now it goes throughout all the land. And the king and Haman sat down to drink and celebrate. Meanwhile, the rest of the city is perplexed. Meaning what? They were celebrating? What does it mean, Luke? It means they were like, what in the world? He's wanting to kill all the Jews on March 13th? This is craziness. So now Mordecai, when he finds out about this, he begins to put sackcloth on. He begins to mourn. He begins to be sorrowful. He's wailing. He's crying out. He's in mourning, and he doesn't care who sees it. He doesn't care who knows. And so people go and tell, hey, Queen Vashti, Mordecai, you might want to check on him. He's upset by something. And so Queen Vashti says, well, take these clothes to him and tell him to get out that sackcloth. That just ain't going to work. Mordecai refuses. I'm not taking off my sackcloth. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you why I'm in sackcloth, little lady. And so he sends a copy of the decree back to Esther. Now Esther has the decree, and now Esther finds out that, all the Jews are to be killed, and that her her foster dad, Mordecai, wants her to do what? Anybody remember what Mordecai wanted her to do? Go talk to the king. You the queen, go talk to him. One little problem, Mordecai. One itsy bitsy problem with that. Could anybody just go walking into the king's? Sadie, what would happen if you just go bursting in to talk to the king? Uninvited, unannounced, and unknown.
If he didn't want you there, then he wouldn't raise his scepter, and so you'd get killed.
Thank you. So Esther says, Mordecai, I love you, but, if I go in there and he hadn't called me, I could be dead. And he says, you know what? When this decree comes out, you're going to be dead anyway. And by the way, who knows, anybody remember the famous quote from the Bible? For what? That you might be here for what? For such a time as this. For such a time as this. Perhaps this is God working to put you in the position to save his people from whom the Messiah of the world will come. So Esther says, okay, everybody pray for me. I'll do it. She goes into the king's courts. The king sees her. Sadie, does he extend the golden scepter? You bet he does. There's my queenie. He extends the golden scepter. And the queen comes in, and he says, what you need, honey? Whatever you want, I'll give up to half the kingdom to you. And Esther says, well, I think I'd like to have a banquet for you. And do you think it would be possible if Haman could come? And the king's like, well, sure. We'll have a banquet, and Haman will come too. So they have a banquet. Everything going great. Have another day of banqueting. Quinn, what, anything you? Yeah, but just give me some time. I'll tell you what. We'll have another day. Just give me some time, and I'll let you know what it is. Now, during this banqueting, Haman is so full of pride that he go home and he tells his wife and his friends. Right? He is so proud that of all the people, that he was the one who got invited to eat with the queen and king of the empire. Nobody else but me. And he's so full of pride, and he's so full of arrogance that he goes home and tells wifey and the friends, guess what? Man, look who you looking at. Yep, it's me. It's me. It's me. I'm Haman. I'm the man. I got to eat with the queen and king. But you know what? When I was leaving the banquet, that sorry Mordecai wouldn't bow, and I tell you what, And his wife and friends told him, you know what? If you that big and bad, why don't you just go ahead and make a gallows and hang him there? Think I will. Think I will. So Haman has a gallows made to end Mordecai's life. And at that point, it looks like a bad story, don't it? Funny thing happened on the way to despair. God worked things out. God worked things out because that night, before they could have that next day's banquet, King Xerxes had a horrible time sleeping. He couldn't go to sleep, man. He couldn't go to sleep. Counting sheep, 1 bag, 2 bags, 3. No, nothing working, right? He can't go to sleep, man. What do I do? Oh, I know. I'll have the records of the court brought in and read to me. Them things are so boring, I'll pass out and go to sleep. So he has the court records brought in and read to him. And as they're reading the court records, amazingly, of all the court records, guess what they start reading about? Anybody remember? Mordecai doing what, Miss Joe? Thwarting the assassination. Now, isn't that amazing? Of all the court records, they're reading about the time that Mordecai thwarted the assassination. And the king goes, was anything ever done for him? And the guy reading the court record, no, nothing in here. We didn't do anything for him. And the king said, well, who's out there in the court walking around? Tell them, come on in here. And of all the people who could be walking around in the court at night when he was trying to sleep, guess who's walking in the court at that moment? No, not Mordecai. Remember? Of all the people, Haman's walking around in the court when he says, who's out there in the court? Tell him, come here. Haman comes in and the king says, what should the king do to whom he delighteth? And Haman's thinking, well, who else would he delight in but me? Because I'm the man. Huh? Who else would he be delighted in but me? So here's my chance, fellas. I tell you what, king, you need to have your royal robes and apparel. And you need to let that person wear them. And then you need to put him on the royal mount. And then as he's being, and then you need one of your top-notch, best of the best, top hands, your top number 2, whoever that might be. Just have them leading that horse through the town and declaring, this is what happens for the one whom the king favors, right? This is what happens for the one whom the king favors, and have him held it as they go down the street so that all can see, oh man, there's the man right there. Because remember, he's thinking what? It's me. Now, can you imagine how Haman must have felt when the king said, that's it, go do that for Mordecai. Right? Oh, right? Jaw drop, gets angry. Oh, but he can't disobey the king. That's the king of the empire. Yes, your highness. He leads Mordecai through the streets of the Shushan, and he's hollering out, this is whom the king delighteth. This is what is done for the king delighteth. And afterwards, he covers his face, and he runs home, and he tells wifey and the friends, and wifey and the friends go, oh, you know what? If he's a Jew, you're going to fall. And about the time they told him that, here comes the herald saying, oh, it's time for the banquet. Well, what a coincidence. Time for the banquet. So now they go to the banquet, and at the banquet, they're in there enjoying themselves, drinking whatnot, enjoying themselves. And as they're enjoying themselves, the king once again asked Queen, what do you want? I give you up to half the kingdom. And now, Queen Esther, anybody remember what she requests? This is the moment, right? This is the moment for such a time as this, queen. This is the moment. She said, king, you know what? Me and my people have been sold. And we've been sold to destruction. And we've been sold to such destruction that there's nothing that can be done. There's nothing that can be helped to fix us. And the king says, who on earth would want to kill you and your people? Can you imagine Haman sitting over there going, oh, man, please don't say me, please don't say me, please don't say me. And Queen Esther goes, honey, Haman. Haman is the wicked one. Now, Haman gets scared to death, as I would. The king gets so mad that he gets up and walks out into the garden to try to cool down. And while he's outside walking in the garden to cool down, anybody remember what Haman does that makes the king even worse, angrier? He falls upon her couch or her place of rest to beg for his life. And when King Xerxes comes back in, he says, "What, will you force the queen in my own palace?" And when he said that, they covered his face, meaning, uh-oh. And all of a sudden, someone speaks up and says, "Hey, King, guess what? He built some gallows, and he was going to hang Mordecai on. They're right over there. You want..." Just saying. I'm just letting you know that. And the king says, "Hang him there on." And so Haman is hung on the very gallows he had built for Mordecai. Remember the law of reaping what you sow. So, and they all lived happily ever after. Not quite, right? Story's not over. Anybody remember what the big problem is still amiss? What big problem is still up in the air that hasn't been resolved yet? There's been a decree. In the Medo-Persian law, once it is written as an edict, it cannot be repealed. Cannot be repealed. So now there goes Haman. Yes. But the Jews are still going to get killed. So now Queen Esther, remember, she's the big hero, the big hero, big heroine of this story. Queen Esther has to go and say, "Husband, my people are still going to get killed. What do we do? My people are still going to get killed." And he's like, "Honey, I can't reverse that law. It's already an edict." Baby, can you go ahead and make another one? And I tell you what, can you make another one? And can you have it like this, that the Jews can now defend themselves? And so an edict goes out that the Jews can now defend themselves and take spoil of whoever was trying to kill them, that they in turn defeat. By the way, Mordecai, after Haman is eradicated and removed, anybody remember what happened to Mordecai? All right. He gets exalted to Haman's position, and he has his possessions. All right. So he now has his possessions and his position. He is now a big dog as well. The edict goes out. The Jews start getting ready to defend themselves. On the 13th was when they were supposed to be slaughtered throughout the empire. On the 13th, they defend themselves. Anybody that tries to hurt them, they end up killing easily. Not only do they kill them easily, but you also need to remember this, that when the edict went out that, hey, we know the king said that all the Jews are going to get killed on the 13th, but now he's saying that on the 14th, or that they can defend themselves. When it first went out, everybody was perplexed. When that second edict went out, everybody rejoiced. Isn't that amazing? First edict, everybody's perplexed. What in the world's going on? Second edict, hey, the Jews are going to be able to defend themselves. Yes. Amazing. Everybody rejoices. They defend themselves. The Queen Esther asked, "Hey, hubby, can we have another day of this?" He said, "You bet, hon." So 14th, 13th, and 14th, they defend themselves. 13th and 14th, they fight. 15th, they rest. And that takes us to Esther chapter 9. So let us read Esther chapter 9. Where did the Jews get this idea of the Feast of Purim? Esther chapter 9, verse 20 is where we're going to start reading. And Mordecai wrote these things. Because remember, he's in what position now? He's in Haman's position. And remember, Haman had the king's signet at one point. So now Mordecai has that opportunity and that authority. And sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month Adar and the 15th day of the same yearly. So now we're seeing where we get this 14th and 15th of Adar each year. Remember, not from the law, here tradition, right? Established here after the Jews. God worked things out to save the Jews, right? Verse 22. As the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. And the Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them, because Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast Pur, that is, the lot, to consume them and destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device, which he devised against the Jews, should return upon his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. Wherefore they called these days Purim, after the name of Pur. Therefore, for all the words of this letter, and of that what they had seen concerning this matter, and which had come unto them, the Jews ordained and took upon them and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail that they would keep these 2 days according to their writing and according to their appointed time every year. And that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. Did you know that, and so there you have it established in the Word, did you know that when all of a sudden that second decree went out that the Jews could defend themselves? Do you remember as you were reading that it said that many people of the empire, when they heard that, they became Jews? Remember that? I always thought that was kind of humorous. They said, what? The Jews are now going to be able to kill anybody that's against them? I'm going to become a Jew, right? So all of a sudden you have a mass number of people becoming Jews or converting to Judaism, at least in name, to keep from being slaughtered. You also need to remember, as we just got through reading, that the penalty, this reaping what you sow, this penalty did not just affect Haman alone. Did anybody also catch who it impacted? That he loved? How about his family? Right? Remember when he lost his possessions because he's dead now as an enemy of the state, Mordecai got him. So long, family. And oh, by the way, his 10 sons that were his pride and joy, anybody know what happened to them? They were hung as well. They were hung as well. And so remember, we think that our decisions are only going to impact me and they're going to impact anybody else, right? And I've often preached this. Hey, dads, hey, moms, your decisions impact your family and your children. So now we see this whole story of Esther, God working things out, God providentially working things out to save his people through whom the Messiah would come. We see all of these different, themes. I'm sure there are probably other themes that you can think of and that you might would want to add if you were doing this study yourself. But these were just some that kind of popped out to me, right? That God said he was going to watch over his people, and watch over his people. He did. Now, when they get together each year for this observance of Purim, they read from chapter 1, verse 1 to the very end of the book, the entire book of Esther, right? It's a part of the celebration. Yeah, there's feast. Yeah, there's presents. Yeah, there's food. There's all this wonderful thing. But we take time to read the entirety of the book of Esther as part of this. Remember, it's all about what? A memorial feast or a memorial observance to remember God providing and God watching over his chosen people. All right, any questions?